Lisa, we are going to do an intro here by Mandy and then turn the time over to you. Thanks so much.
Okay, so my name is Mandy Kent. I am one of the Salt Lake County network leaders for the Family to Family Network. The Family to Family Network is a statewide parent support network run by volunteers. It's designed to educate, strengthen, and support families of persons with disabilities, especially those who are on the waiting list for the Division of Services for People with Disabilities. Network leaders are parents of individuals with special needs and link families to local resources, services, and disability-friendly events. The Family to Family Network is a project of the Utah Parent Center, and we are run underneath the Utah Parent Center. And we are happy to have you here tonight. We're also happy to have Lisa Wade presenting about person-centered planning. And we will turn it over to Lisa to teach us more about that.
Thank you. Just share my screen. Hopefully that worked. So the topic for tonight's discussion is person-centered planning for everyone. I'm going to focus a lot on how to do it with and for people with disabilities, but really this topic is applicable to anyone, and we actually do it regularly, most of us in our lives. So to introduce me, my name is Lisa Wade, and I work for the Utah Parent Center on their special projects. I'm a special projects consultant. I'm also the parent of a now adult. He just turned 25. How did that happen? Young man who has autism and intellectual disabilities, and he put me on the path of advocacy about 23 years ago. And I have done a lot of advocating and working with the Family to Family Network. Has really been one place where I've come to get answers to my questions. So please connect with your Family to Family networks regularly. I know it will help you along. And I was even a volunteer leader for many years, along with Julia Pierce. So as I go through the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to just type them in the chat. I think everybody's been muted, but you can type your questions in the chat, and Julia will and Mandy will kind of monitor that for me in case I don't see it. And so they'll feel free to stop me and ask those questions, ladies. So let's get started. As a parent, the hopes and dreams you had for your child may have changed as a result of their disability, but I would guess that you still have hopes and dreams for your child. And actually, I'd be curious to know what some of those hopes and dreams are, if you wouldn't mind just typing them in the chat, along with your name if you haven't already done so, so they can pair you up with your registration. What are some of the hopes and dreams that you have for your child with disabilities? I know, as I said, my son just turned 25, and he still lives at home, but I have hopes that at some point he'll be able to live on his own. In fact, I'm sitting in our basement apartment at our home that we hope someday he'll be able to live here on his own or with some peers.
So we have a couple that came in.
Mm-hmm.
One is employment.
Great.
Another one is to live independently.
Great.
Another one, independence or supportive living. Those are good.
Great, great dreams, and don't give up, right? I would guess too that your child has their own hopes and dreams. And as a parent, I am sure you want to do everything you can to make those hopes and dreams come true to the best of your ability. But we also have our worries and our fears about life for our children. And sometimes those worries and fears inadvertently keep us from letting our loved ones do the things that they want to do. A question that I've often had to ask myself is, do I enable my son or do I disable my son more because of my own concerns and worries? So person-centered planning is a way to help support those hopes and dreams. Did we have any more hopes and dreams come in, Julie? I don't want to move on if someone had something to share.
Yeah, 2 more came in.
Awesome.
One was hope for her to independently communicate with others. And the next one is for self-advocacy.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Those are great hopes and dreams. And I think some of the things that we talk about tonight with person-centered planning, if it is your loved ones' hope and dream as well, to do those things that you're hoping for them, will help you come up with some strategies to get you there. So what is person-centered planning? Person-centered planning is a plan to help an individual achieve a happy and fulfilled life. It's the process for deciding what is important to an individual, their personal needs, wishes, goals, and their dreams. We use person-centered planning anytime we set goals to help us reach our desired outcomes. Educators use an individualized education plan, or IEP, to create an educational plan. Vocational rehabilitation uses an individual plan for employment, or IPE. I have to stop and think about the acronyms, to create a plan around employment. And the Division of Services for People with Disabilities, or DSPD, uses something called a person-centered support plan, or PCSP, to create a plan that will provide the supports for an individual. But all of these plans should be person-centered, meaning that they should all allow the voice of the individual for whom the plan is being written to drive the plan. In many cases, with people with disabilities, they're not always consulted about what they want for their life. They may only get to work on goals that other people have set for them. But a person-centered plan allows the individual to be the architect of their own life. Plans can focus on one specific area of life, on one developmental stage. They can focus on the entire lifespan or a specific period of time, just depending on what your needs are. It can be done for yourself or any member of your family. As I said in the beginning, person-centered planning is applicable to just about everyone. Now, I know that there are those of you listening that are saying, well, that's great for some people, but my child doesn't have a way to communicate, so this doesn't apply to us. But this process is possible even with individuals who don't use words to communicate. It will, it may be a bit of a challenge, and you may need to be a little bit more creative in your approach, but you definitely can get the information from individuals about what they want for their life. And as I said, you just have to be a little bit more creative about it. So we're going to talk about communication for just a couple of minutes. One thing, when you start talking about what a good life looks like, there might be some unfamiliar vocabulary that people with communication difficulties may not have encountered. They spend a lot of time practicing saying yes and no, or pointing to things that they want, but they don't have a lot of experience in expressing their dreams or their hopes, or their strengths or their feelings, right? These are those harder concepts to draw into a communication strategy. So it's a good idea to start introducing the vocabulary that an individual will need to talk about what their hopes and dreams are. Give them the opportunity to also talk about what they don't want in their life. We do a great job of saying, what do you want? What do you want? Right? But we don't always say, what don't you want in your life? And teaching them the ability to say no. And self-expression is something that individuals with communication difficulties don't get a lot of chance to practice. They may not really understand what it looks like or feels like to share their personal thoughts and feelings. Excuse me while I get a drink. So as we begin this process, these are all things that we need to think about and be aware of. What words will my son or daughter need to participate in this process, and how can I teach the words to him or her? And not just how do they say their words, or how do they know what words they want to say, but how are they going to say those words? Some individuals can use their voice. Some individuals use signs. Some can point to or communicate a simple yes or no. Or some people use the point system, pointing to things to tell you what they want and desire. Sometimes people might not be able to point at something, but they can bat or swipe, or you can exchange things, hand them things back and forth. And you can even resort to eye gaze. People can tell you what they want using their eye gaze. And there's something that's called partner-assisted scanning, which is a great strategy for people with complex motor challenges. And it's using a partner to present options to you one at a time, either visually or auditorially. And then they will indicate yes or no with the things that you're presenting. And this could take a whole training unto itself. So I see Julia's popped on and is smiling because this is a whole seminar on its own. But you can contact the Utah Center for Assistive Technology, your school district's assistive technology team, or contact the Utah Parent Center and talk to Julia Pierce, who has some great ideas. Julia, do you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to pop on and give you a chance also to take a drink for a minute and add just a little bit more about communication strategies in this area. Talk just a little bit more about how will they choose their words, because as we look at this, these are things that start when somebody is very young, and often they're already established. So it's not something we have to start right now. Like if you have somebody who is older, maybe 14, 15, or even older, 20, 30 years old, somebody could be using adapted sign language, which we call, anybody who uses sign language, we all create our own signs. If you're using pictures, that could be a picture exchange communication system. They could be picture symbols. There's so many ways we can individualize all of these communication systems. And eye gaze could be a $30,000 system, or it could be looking between two preferred items and making a choice. It could also be what you and I do all day long when we're looking across the room at somebody we know and we're like, let's go, let's get out of here. That's also eye gaze. We're using most of these things ourselves and we don't even know it. So that last system that Lisa was describing was a very succinct description of a really wonderful communication system that is very robust and can go very in depth. So she gave 3 great resources, well, 2 really great, and then 1 that kind of swings by the rafters. But there are so many ways that people who we are not sure what they do know in their communication are able to be so included in a person-centered plan, and many that are already established that we can get more of their detailed information, and it's already within their world. We can also include many other communication systems. Yes, I love this topic, but I wanted also Lisa to have a chance to find some of that lozenge that she just gave into her and find a voice again. So as we go on to this next slide, that's going to become very important because there are more ways that we can do this. And here are just a couple of more things. And if you found your voice, then you can take it from here, or I can continue talking about this slide. Whatever you need.
I think I'm okay. When you're working from home and you don't talk a lot, my voice doesn't last very long like it used to.
Hey, there you go.
Thank you, Julia.
You're welcome.
So finding those words, sometimes individuals use a communication system, and you may not realize that there are words about employment or independent living programmed in there. You might have to do some searching to find that. You know, you might be very familiar with the home folder and the school folder, but make sure that there's work on there as well. And some way of presenting information that people understand might better be done with pictures than with symbols or even words. right? You can show someone a picture of what work looks like, and they might be able to understand that concept better than the word work. So pictures are great. Video is even better. And thanks to YouTube, you can find almost anything you want on YouTube. There's a video about it. Creating photo albums of individuals engaged in the activities that they love to do can be a great point of reference. And you can make those little photo folders where you can look through the little book of pictures of them doing the things that they love. And that's a way that they can communicate their hopes and dreams to you. And then choice cards can be used to rank things in order or to narrow down between one or the other. And we're going to talk a little bit more about choice cards later on. I'm going to give an example of how that has worked for us. Okay, another concept to be considered in person-centered planning is this concept of important to and what is important for the individual. And when we consider what's important for the individual, you think about issues like their physical and emotional health and safety, and their wellness, prevention of emergencies, and the support needed for their well-being. And it's also, we also consider what others see as important to help the individual be a valued member of their community. And those are things that parents tend to focus on, is what's important for an individual. When we consider what is important to an individual, those are the things that will help the individual be more satisfied with their life. They'll be fulfilled, content, and happy from their perspective. And it will include their goals, their passions, and their interests, relationships, places to go, things they want, the routines that are important to them. So what's important to the individual is what is considered their most important element. So if you want individuals to address what is important for them, there has to be an element of it that is important to them. So when you're doing a person-centered plan, you want to think about what is important to the individual as well as what's important for the individual, because they do need to be safe and healthy and well to be able to do what's important to them. And make sure there's a good balance, just like this graphic shows. And what can other people do to help the individual be successful with what is important to them and what is important for them? And that's the question that helps inform the discussion that we talk about supports. How can we support them and what's important to them as well as important for them? So with this kind of foundation about person-centered planning, I want to talk to you about some tools that can assist you with person-centered planning. These tools are designed to help facilitate conversations about what an individual wants, doesn't want, who can help them achieve it, and the steps it will take to get there. DSPD, the Division of Services for People with Disabilities, has selected these tools as well as the Charting the LifeCourse framework as a way to help the service system be more person-centered. So those who are in DSPD services may find it useful to access and incorporate these tools into the person-centered support plan process. But these tools are applicable to everyone, whether you're receiving DSPD services or not. In fact, I would say if you're not receiving services, it's probably as important or more important for you to use to create some sort of a person-centered plan. The tools that I've spoken about are available free of charge at lifecoursetools.com. And I intended for some of the tools to be sent out, the ones that we're talking about, to those who are signed up for tonight's workshop. So hopefully you also have a copy available to you. So what is Charting the LifeCourse? Charting the LifeCourse is a framework or a philosophy that was created by families, such as a family-to-family network and Family Voices, to help individuals and families of all ages and abilities develop a vision for a good life. Think about what they need to know and do, identify how to find or develop supports, and discover what it takes to live the life that they want to live. Their core belief is all people have the right to live, love, work, play, and pursue their life as aspirations, just as others do in the community. Individuals and families can look at their current situation and stage of life, but charting the life course encourages us to look ahead and think about life experiences that will help us move forward. And those are those icons across the bottom of the different life stages. We want to move everyone towards a more inclusive, productive life in the future, because what happens in one stage of life will impact what happens in the rest. And even though this framework was originally created for people with disabilities, it was universally designed so that it's applicable to any person, family, or even organizations use these tools to help their organizations succeed. So it's pretty much applicable to everyone. So besides looking at all the stages of life, charting the life course encourages us to look at our entire life when making a person-centered plan. So the 6 areas of life that they encourage us to look at include daily life and employment, community living. So daily life and employment is like school, employment, volunteering, things that you do all day. Community living is more about where you live, what your housing situation is like, and your access to transportation. Social and spirituality domain is your friendships and relationships, your personal networks, as well as your faith community. Healthy living domain where focuses on your medical health, your mental health, your nutrition, and your development. The safety and security domain helps you prepare for emergencies and make sure that your rights are being maintained. And things like guardianship or alternatives are considered in that life domain. And then finally, advocacy and engagement. It's important for us all to feel like we are valued members of our community, and that comes through the advocacy and engagement life domain. These domains are all interconnected. They're all interrelated and connected. I put those 2 words together. So what happens in one domain will impact others. For example, if you lose your job in the daily life and employment domain, it may affect where you live. It could affect your health and your safety, right? It's been my experience, and as I've talked to others across the country about this, it seems that the service system really focuses on health and safety of the individuals that they serve. But we need to think about every aspect of an individual's life, including those with disabilities. And if you think about it, when you go to a social engagement, back in the day when we actually went to social engagements, people didn't say, so how do you keep yourself safe? And what do you do to stay healthy? Those are not usually the first questions people ask when they want to get to know you. They talk about, do you work? Well, where do you work? Oh, and where do you live? Oh, that's over by that park. Do you ever go to that park, right? You start talking about all of these life domain areas. Those are the quality of life areas. So we want to make sure when you're creating a person-centered plan that you think about all these areas of life and how they will connect and support each other. So the first tool is the trajectory worksheet for exploring. Now, charting the life course uses this trajectory imagery a lot. And this is a great tool to use to start your person-centered plan. You can start your conversation about what makes a good life. The big box at the top right is where you can write down the vision for the things that you want in your life. And you can also discuss the things that an individual doesn't want in their life, and that can go in that box on the bottom right-hand corner. Along the trajectory arrows, you can write the experiences that have helped someone get to their vision of what they want, or the things that may have happened that will lead them to what they don't want in their life. The toolkit offers an individual version as well as a family version. And I think it's a good idea for families to think about what's their vision for their loved one. And it can help guide the conversation. And then the individual uses their individual worksheet, and you can kind of compare what the visions look like. But of course, in person-centered planning, it's what the individual wants that should be the most important consideration. So when using this tool, what does the individual think makes a good life? Does it involve working? If so, at what kind of job? What about hobbies? What do you enjoy doing in your leisure time? Where do you want to live? Who or how do you manage your health? And because there are many different aspects that involve living a good life, you may need to be creative in talking about what a good life is and what it is not. And this is a time when pictures or videos of different alternatives to living or to employment might be helpful, or taking tours of various places, so that the individual could really understand what it means to have a vision of a good life. Now, there's another trajectory tool that I really like, and this is the worksheet for planning. And this one also has a family version and an individual version. And this worksheet is based on the philosophy that past life experiences can help inform the future vision and help you to avoid the things that you don't want. So remembering that all life stages are interconnected and they build upon one another, what happens in one stage will affect the stages to come. So this worksheet has 2 additional columns. The column on the left is for past life experiences. So the top of the column is for those experiences that helped you move towards your vision of a good life. And the bottom is for those life experiences that could lead you to what you don't want in your life. In the middle, the column moving forward is where you could put steps, goals, or things you can do to reach the vision of what you want in your life. Or on the bottom, what you need to avoid so that you don't end up what you don't want. Steps for moving forward also translate beautifully into goals. So thinking about yourself and what you would like, what's your vision of a good life? What experiences have you had in your past life that will help you to get to your vision of a good life? So while you're putting that in the chat, and please participate, it makes me feel like I'm not all alone here in my basement talking to you. My son, Brandon, can read and he can do his own laundry. So that can help as we move forward with thinking about how he can be independent. You know, at least I know he's going to have semi-clean clothes, and that he could read instructions. For me, I'm getting close to retirement age. I hate to admit it, but it's coming, and I would like to have a good quality of life at that point, to be able to travel, to volunteer, to work on some passion projects that I haven't had time to work on. I don't want to be stuck home. I don't want to have poor health, and I don't want to keep working and working and working just to pay the bills. So things in my past life that have helped me move towards that goal is that I've been working for most of my life. And so not only is that giving me income, but it's also let me pay into Social Security. So maybe at some point I can tap into that if it's still around. Something that has not helped, as my husband was out of work for a year or so, and that made it a little harder to put money away for the future. So gratefully he's working again. So moving forward, we're going to continue putting money away and exercising and eating healthy so that I can do what I'd like to do in my good life in the future. Any responses, Julia?
I'm not seeing anything yet, but I think when we get to these next couple of slides and you show some examples, there'll be some more questions coming in.
Okay. Well, hopefully that you all are thinking about what your vision of a good life is.
Oh, the one just came in.
Bless you.
It's all percolating, it's simmering. Okay, so learning new things equals meaning I can still do things and change in the future.
Nice. I like that.
Another one that came in is, I think a good life for me has to include travel. The same is true for my daughter who has autism. We love Disney.
I'm so sad that we're not there. I know we're Disney lovers too, as you will see on this next slide, which this is my cutie. And he is living his good life to the best of our ability. So a few months ago, Brandon had his person-centered support plan meeting with his support coordinator from DSPD, as well as his team. We call him Team Brandon. And as you look at this, which I'm sorry it's so blurry, and maybe it's just because I don't have my readers on, but hopefully you can read it okay. But Brandon's basically nonverbal. He can get his needs met and he's got language, but he's not conversational at all. But he very definitely has chosen his vision for a good life. And some of the things that he chose, he wants to be in charge of his life. He likes challenges and trying new things. He wants to have a job. He wants to have his own space, go to Disneyland and Disney World and Universal Studios Orlando in 2021. We were supposed to go this year to Disney World and just did not happen. Thank you, COVID. So he's got definite Disney desires for next year. Some things he doesn't want is he doesn't want to feel like a little kid or to be bossed around. Can you tell he's the youngest in the family? He has 5 parents, 3 older siblings and his own parents. And he doesn't want to have to do things he doesn't want to do because we can't leave him alone. That's kind of a pet peeve of his that he indicated in when we created his vision. So for Brandon, some of his past life experiences, he used to have a job and he used to volunteer before COVID, and he has some life skills that he can do on his own. But things that would take him towards a life he doesn't want include being the youngest in the family, so he doesn't want to be treated like a baby, and not knowing how to take care of himself. He has proven he is not safe alone without supervision, and even with supervision, he's not always safe. So that's a challenge, right? So moving forward, Brandon chose the things that he wants to learn this year. And it was interesting to note that he wants to learn, he wants to practice job skills. It's been kind of a little less structured in a COVID environment, and he's not able to go to work. But he's still going to his day programs, and he wants them to practice job skills with him so that he's ready to go back to work. He's anxious to do that. And then he also doesn't want to have to go places with mom and dad because we won't leave him alone. So he definitely wants to learn to be on his own and learn how to use the telephone for more than watching YouTube and Googling things. So we're bravely going to venture into that independent skill so that he can be on his own. So how did we find out that these are the things that Brandon wanted to do if he doesn't really have the vocabulary or the language skills to tell us? Well, we used choice cards. And Brandon very clearly expressed his wants through this system. And this is how we used it and how it worked for us. And you could take this idea and tweak it to fit your situation. But what I did was have family members that know Brandon well fill out the trajectory on his behalf. Like, what do you think is Brandon's vision of a good life? So everybody filled it out for him. And then I took all of their answers and, you know, combined those that were similar. And then I put them on index cards because, as I said, Brandon knows how to read. He likes to sort and categorize things. So I would give him a choice card, and then he had to put it into a category of things I want in my life, things I don't want in my life, and things that I'm not sure about. I suddenly have developed the hiccups, so hopefully that made me nervous enough that I won't hiccup out loud. Okay. Anyway, so he took the choice cards one at a time and he put them into the piles, and it was interesting to see that he felt very definite about some things, felt very definite about some things he didn't want, and then there were other things he didn't have a definite feeling for, so they went in the I'm not sure pile. Then because we used the planning trajectory that has that column of moving forward, we wrote down some ideas of things Brandon might want to learn to help him get to his life. And again, I gave Brandon the choices, and he definitely picked the things he wanted to learn. And there were some things I was really surprised about that he chose. And it was very eye-opening for me as his mom to hear him say in his way that he wants to be independent. He wants to be able to be home alone. And as terrifying as that is for me and making my heart pound, he's a young man and I need to stop babying him and let him grow up. So there's a lot of power in allowing our loved ones to tell us what they want for their lives. So there's an example of how to use choice cards and of what a trajectory can look like of one person. Do we have any questions or anything coming in, Julia? Will I get my heart rate down?
Oh, there was not a question, but a really great statement, and it's the dignity of risk.
Yes. The dignity of risk is, and I had to look this up the first time I heard it, and I'm like, what is that? But it is that we should all be allowed to take risks within parameters, right? And sometimes we don't allow individuals with disabilities to take risks. We protect them from failing, from possibly, you know, being hurt or injured or in an unsafe situation. So they don't get to learn the many things that we have learned from the risks that we've taken and either had it go badly or well, right? It's a great way to learn. And so dignity. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think this again comes from a young age, right? We might stop young children from climbing something. I remember when our son discovered he could move a chair and get to the potato chips. And I heard the chair scraping in the kitchen, and I turned the corner and he was like, check out what I can do. Check it out. And I was like, sweet, go for it. Well, the chips then became fair game, which every young teenage person should have, right? And then it became, well, see how I can climb over the back of the couch. And it was out of sheer, like there was pride within him growing. And it was also a little bit frightening because he had osteoporosis and a broken bone meant a big deal. But all right, so how are you going to do that? So those are things that if we do them as people are growing up, like every other person, like I did, right? We climbed out third-story windows and my parents were like, so I didn't see you use the door. Correct. Check it out.
Risk.
New concept for many of us, and yet super cool for a person to find their own power and their own self-determination. Really
right.
Cool.
And it goes back to that statement I made in the beginning. Am I enabling or am I disabling? Because I mean, in my son's situation, he is a runner, when he's not happy with the situation, he will take off, and he has no concept of safety or street safety. And I mean, it's literally life-threatening. And part of me wants to keep him locked inside our house so that I know he's safe, but I know he wouldn't be happy doing that. So every time I let him leave the house, it's a risk, but I make sure his aides have my cell phone number, their tennis shoes on, and we're prepared for contingencies. And there have been times when I have had to take off running to get to him and get him and help get him in a safe situation. But those few times far outweigh all the wonderful times that he's been able to access the community. So it's a risk for us all.
There is one more comment. We
Yes.
will never know what we can do if we don't have the opportunity to try. This is part of civil rights and the concept of equal opportunity.
Correct. Absolutely. And again, we learn so much by trying things, and it may work and it may not, but you still will have learned something from the experience. I want to show you the sample trajectory of a young man who had his life all organized, and then the COVID restrictions hit. And so his team quickly helped him come up with this vision for a good life during the COVID environment. So I know it's small text, and if you want to be able to read it, you can find the sample. I got it from LifeCourseTools.com, and they have a lot of samples there that you can go and see what other people have done for their vision of a good life. And again, it's important to let people share what's important to them so that you can help them reach that vision. So I'm curious if anyone has had some ideas come to them about how you might use the trajectory with yourself or your loved one. And feel free, I'd love to hear your ideas in the chat. You know, a trajectory can be done by just taking a piece of scratch paper and drawing 2 arrows and a couple of boxes. You could focus your trajectory on a specific time frame. What's my vision of a good day tomorrow? My vision of a good week, a good year. Or you could focus your trajectory on a specific life domain. Remember, we talked about the 6 different life domains. Maybe you just want to focus on your living space. Maybe you'd like to focus on your spiritual life. So you could do a trajectory for one life domain. And you could do it for one life stage. What I want to accomplish, you know, in college, or what do I want to accomplish by the time I'm 30, which was a long time ago. And think about if you could do it for your future or for a specific goal. What's your vision for the end? What do you want to avoid? What life experiences have you had that will help you get to that vision of a good life? And what do you want to avoid? What things do you need to not do to avoid what you don't want? So that's just how easy it is to start a person-centered plan for yourself, or to have this conversation with a loved one and help them write their person-centered plan. Did we have any brave souls who wanted to share anything?
They're still percolating.
Okay, well, I hope that your silence does not mean that this is not connecting with you. I hope that there's something in it, some kernel in there that's meaningful to you that you want to use going forward. Because I've got 2 more tools to talk about that will help us with our trajectory.
So
I just wanted to say thank you, because this has really helped me just since I've been on, because my little boy's 8 years old. And, you know, from the time that I knew that we were looking at not a typically developing child, I kind of been like, okay, what do I do now? You know, and this is so simple, but so guided, because my little 8-year-old boy, you know, I kind of had him in this box of, well, he's still kind of a toddler, so I don't have to worry about stuff right now, right? Well, yeah, he's not safe, and he's 8 years old, and he's starting to read. And yeah, this is huge for me as a parent, because I have to start looking at him as not a toddler. I have to look at him as he's an individual, and he does need to start taking risks, and I need to allow that. So thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, it's hard when I look at pictures of my now 25-year-olds when he was just this little cute boy with these little blonde curls, and oh, he was so precious, and I thought he's never going to grow up, and he did. So it's been a process. He and I have both grown up quite a bit together. So thank you. Let's talk about the integrated support star.
So we have two other comments really quick.
Please.
One is, I love the way that this can apply to short-term and long-term goals. And this reminds me of a vision board, but with more details of how, when, where, and why. Great tool for success. There is a question with great information. Will there be a replay afterwards?
That's the plan. It is being recorded. Unfortunately, sometimes our recordings at the Utah Parent Center go into this vault to be, I don't know, changed somehow to make it onto YouTube. So if we can move that process along, it should be available on YouTube.
We are working on that, as this is now on a different Zoom account. So that will be the goal, is to get this available for families, as we have a large number of families we know this could be helpful for right away. So if you have signed up for this, which you are here, so thank you for being here. The plan is to get this out to this group and others soon. I'll be working on that with Lisa to get this ready to go, as she grins from ear to ear. And then this last comment, this is so important to get us through the services cliff. School ends and they have direction. Thank you.
Yes, and that cliff is real. Even though you feel like you're very prepared, it's pretty steep. But this will definitely help bridge that gap and get you safely to the other side. This integrated support star, one thing I love about Charting the Life course is that they use icons and colors to really connect everything together. And this image on the left-hand side of the screen with the person in the middle and the family surrounding them and the community around them, that is how we all live, right? We live in the context of our families and communities. And all those stars represent supports that a person may need to access their families and communities and to fully enjoy them. Because that's what we want, is integrated lives. We don't want people with disabilities surrounded by their services and not accessing their community. So the integrated support star is a tool that's used to identify supports in individuals already receiving in order to live an inclusive life. And it can also determine where supports are lacking. And you can use it to determine or to identify some partnerships where collaboration works best. And when you're doing a person-centered plan, you will definitely want to look at 5 different areas of support. And these are represented by the sections of the star, and again, by colors. So the purple section of the star is relationships. And this can include your friends, your families, your neighbors, your community, your church group, co-workers. I mean, there's a whole slew of relationships that you should consider how they can support you in your goals. Personal strengths and assets there at the top is shown in that kind of teal blue color. This is for the individual for whom the plan is being written or who is writing the plan. And you look at their strengths and their assets and their skills. And again, sometimes when we do person-centered planning, when we do a plan for an individual and we write goals for our loved ones, we don't always look at what they are bringing to the table. So a person-centered plan would encourage you to look at the individual strengths that they bring to the table to help them reach their vision of a good life. And that could be personal knowledge, like they know how to ride the bus, or they have great social skills or training, or it could be a material asset. Maybe they own a car. So what can they bring to the table? The technology is shown in pink, and this can include personal and environmental and assistive technology. So it could be something from a cell phone or an iPad or adaptive equipment, or a smart assistant to tell the lights to turn on, or even a low-tech item like a schedule board or a task list. Community resources are shown in the blue section at the bottom, and these can include places, groups, and government resources that anyone can access. For example, a school, a grocery store, the gym, public transportation, so things that anyone in the community can access. Eligibility specific supports are those shown in the green section, and they include things that you must be able to qualify for, either they're needs-based or disability specific. So things like Medicaid, food stamps, Section 8 housing, special education services would fall in those eligibility specific supports. And I think sometimes when an individual gets into services, like with DSPD, all you focus on is what can DSPD do to help us? How can they help us reach our goals? Rather than considering all of the areas and natural supports and things that are available that can support you. It also is great for those who don't have access to DSPD supports or some of those eligibility specific supports, because you could think about, wow, there really are a lot of other supports available to help my son or daughter to reach their best life. So when you're problem solving, when you're working on this person-centered plan, you're going to go through each of these 5 areas, 5 fingers. So it makes it really easy to think about. Have you thought about this personal strengths? Have you thought about community resources, right, to help reach the goals? This tool is also a great tool for problem solving. It's a great tool to use for organizations when they're doing some planning to think about what connections they have or what supports they might need. Let's talk about some ways to use the integrated support star. So here's what it looks like on the right when it's not filled out. So when you're using it for person-centered planning, some people don't read. So it might be better for them to use pictures or icons. And you can do that on the trajectory as well. I'm just mentioning it here for the star. Many people like to do the trajectory first and then use the star to see what's going to help the individual get to their vision of a good life. You can use the star to help you implement goals. For example, maybe the goal is safely crossing the street. And this is a goal that we've had at our house, working on that safety issue. So the personal strengths and assets of the individual might be, well, they know how to walk. They can push the button to get the, the signal to walk across the street, and they can tell the difference between the red hand and the walking person. Okay, let's look at relationships. Well, grandma lives within walking distance across the street, so we can practice going to grandma's house and practice our skills of street crossing. Eligibility, maybe your loved one does qualify for services and can have his support staff help him practice walking across the street, or her practice walking across the street, and use their time together to work on that goal. Community resources. Let's think, well, I live between 2 schools. So at certain times the corners by my house. So I could make use of the crossing guards to help get across the street at certain times of the day. Or maybe I cross the street safely to get to a park to go play. Technology, I bet there are YouTube videos on how to safely cross the street that you could access. I know that my phone, I can pull up a map and it will do a walking route and tell me how to get someplace by walking. And that can help me to practice safely walking across the street. Or maybe I need something simpler, like a steps on a chart, and I go through each step on my chart to help me practice the steps of crossing the street. So that can help you see how you could use this tool to help you work on a goal. And if this were my chart for that, right in the middle, I would put crossing the street. So I know that that is what we were working on with this particular support star. One of my favorite ways to use the star is to divide each category into two. So I would draw a line right up the middle of each section. And I would, on one side, put what do we have now, and what supports are we going to need in the future, right? So you can start planning ahead. Or, you know, what do we have and what do we need right now? What supports do we have right now? What supports do we need right now? So it can help you get a real visual idea of where you're at with your supports. And if all of your supports are in relationships, and that's the only way your individual is getting the helps that they need, that could be a problem if any of those relationships go south, right? So you need to make sure that you're looking in all of the areas and trying to find ways to shore up support for your loved one in all of those areas, so that they will be getting all the supports that they need, regardless of what's happening in one area or another. Hopefully that makes sense. Any questions about the integrated support star? I'm going to show you a sample, and that might trigger some questions. So on the LifeCourseTools.com website, they have what they call starter stars, right? And these are stars designed to help you get those conversations going. So I picked this particular star because sometimes parents just say, I just need respite. If I could just get a couple of hours of respite a month and get my sanity back, it would make a huge difference in my life. And I bet your loved one might say, if I could just get a few hours free from mom or dad, right? Would help me out a lot too. So it could be good on both sides. So this starter star is to give you a springboard to think of ideas and ways that you could solve your respite problem. And again, if you've got supports, DSPD, paid services, or Social Security, right, that's a little more something that might be a little easier to do. But there's other ways to get respite, or to find ways to get respite supports. Does your loved one, can they stay home alone? Can they call 911? Can they use public transportation? These are all ideas to help you think about if they could be alone. For relationships, are there friends or extended family that could provide support, or spiritual leaders or church members, co-workers or employees? I mean, some of these categories I hadn't thought of to think about, oh, maybe there's somebody there that would be willing to volunteer once a month for a few hours so I could go to dinner with my husband or whatever, right? So again, this is just to get you thinking. It's that brainstorming to get you thinking about some of the options that are out there. For eligibility, access to SSI or Medicaid waivers is very helpful. There's also centers, programs that offer respite services that you might have to pay a little bit for, but they are open and available for you to bring your loved one, and they usually will have trained either staff or volunteers on hand to help watch your child while you go to a movie or whatever. I know I used to use the UFIT program up at the University of Utah on Friday nights to have 2 hours without chasing my son around, and he was growing up. In the community, there might be a special interest group, or Parks and Rec often have activities going on, classes and things like that. Your school might have an after-school program that you could avail yourself of. Faith-based camps, family cooperatives, get with a group of other parents and kind of trade off taking care of each other's kids. And there's also sitter services available. I know that organizations or companies like care.com, you can actually ask for people who are trained with special needs to hire a sitter that way. And then technology, you know, medical alert monitoring or a smart device or video chats or GPS locators, those kinds of things. I know we're working on that, having my son use a phone to actually call so that we could step out of the house and still contact him with via FaceTime or something, so that he can have some alone time. And so could we. So hopefully this has triggered some ideas for you to think about, wow, here's a good way to solve a problem or to look at some possible solutions to problems. Any questions about the sample or about the integrated support star?
We do have one question that came in that could possibly be one that goes in for this, and it's, what is everyone doing for respite during COVID?
That does add another element, for sure.
Yeah.
And I hope people can can offer their support and answers, alternatives in the chat. I know my son is still able to go to his day program, but everyone wears masks, they follow a strict protocol, those kinds of things. But in terms of respite, where my husband and I go out, we've only been able to do that twice, and that's with family members that have been able to come and stay for a few hours. So it's hard, and especially in this COVID environment.
Yeah, this person said, that's where we are too.
Yeah.
Respite.
It's like maybe when this is over with, the pandemic is held at bay, you'll have more options.
I do think this is a good tool to use to get some brainstorming now, because times will change, like they eventually will, and to think of ideas, because respite is one of those areas to think about additional ideas with or without services through a state agency, a provider, funding, right? There's, even with funding, people are always looking for additional people to have respite providers or a respite worker, a direct support professional with. Yeah. Matt, one other person said, we are struggling for respite right now. It has been really hard. It has. It's finding people. And I've heard a lot of families say, like, we need to keep people safe. So we're not doing respite even if we have people around us, because, it is hard.
It is.
Yeah.
But I think your point, Julia, is good, because you can't just say, hey, can you watch my kid tonight? Right? I mean, respite is something you've got to build that relationship and make sure it's going to be a good fit for you and your loved one. So thinking about and preparing now for the day in the hopefully near future when you're able to leave and able to have other people come into your home.
Yeah. There is one more comment. This is also making us check our own mental flexibility, creativity, mental health is safe. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a great comment. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. We have very wise people participating with us.
Yeah, this is really good information. Thank you.
Yeah. So I've got one more tool I want to talk to you about. And it is called the Life Domain Vision Tool. And this is not what it looks like. We've chopped it up to make it fit on a PowerPoint slide, but it's got the it looks at all of the life domain areas, and it's a one-page tool. So you would take this tool, sometimes showing someone a trajectory and just going, okay, let's talk about your trajectory. What do you want for your life? What do you want to do for work? Where do you want to live? Right? And going through all those sections can be a little bit overwhelming. So the Life Domain Vision tool allows you to just look at one domain at a time. And you can also talk to your son or daughter about what daily life and employment means and what it looks like and what are some things that would fit in this category, right? So you can get really in depth in one specific area. One thing I like about this tool is that it has that priority box. And I don't know if you can see it on the form. It's kind of in the middle. Well, it's on the far right side of each section of the form, which we've chopped in half and put it side to side, just to make it really confusing for you. But this allows you to prioritize what is most important to be working on right now. And sometimes you might work on more than one number one priority, right? You might need to get to bed early and get up early, part of your healthy living domain, so that you can get to work on time, part of your daily life and employment. So those areas might work together. Another thing I like about this tool is, guess what? You don't have to fill out every box. I am a rule follower, so I would feel a need to fill it all out, but you don't have to. You can only talk about the things that you want to talk about, or maybe you just take a domain a week to talk about what that means and what's the vision, right? I like that this form also includes supports to family, because not only does your loved one with disabilities have needs, but guess what? So does your family. And then there's a section for integrated supports and services, where you can talk about what are the supports and services that you're going to need to get this vision in all these areas of your life domain. So feel free to just use this tool in a way that works best for you and for your family. And it also comes in a version for families to fill out, and then for the individual to fill out. And again, it's nice to have those two separate viewpoints and then bring them together. And sometimes you may see how close you are on your vision, and maybe you'll see areas that you're very far apart, and you'll need to have some good discussions about what that's going to look like and how you're going to compromise, or how you can support your loved one in their vision, or have them understand why your vision for them is so important to you. But we always, in person-centered planning, you always want to honor what the individual wants for their life to the extent possible. So I'm going to show you a sample of a life domain vision tool that, if you have really, really good eyesight, you'll be able to read. And again, I had to chop it up to make it even fit like this on the screen. But a mom filled this out for her adult daughter, and what she wanted for her adult daughter. And her number one priority was for her daughter to find a group of friends with similar interests. She just wanted her daughter to have a nice social circle. And number two was for her daughter to learn about her own medical history, so she could advocate for herself and take more control over her medical care. Number three was on the bottom side, and it was for Sarah to find transportation options so she could be independent, and to find someone to help her with their medical care. And the thing I like about this is, yeah, mom filled out every section, but she prioritized 3 things. So she's only got 3 things that she's going to be focusing on with her daughter to help her get to her vision of a good life and be more independent. So she'll be able to help Sarah achieve and access her goals. So this is what the whole life domain vision tool looks like. And I put it next to the trajectory tool because they can inform each other. Some people like to do the vision tool first and then take it and move it onto the trajectory. And I mean, you could leave it on the life domain vision tool. I just like the visual of the trajectory where I'm moving towards this goal of the good life. And I know someone in the chat talked about a vision board. And yes, this is very similar to a vision board, but I think much more concrete. But I think that the visual of it also has power to show you that we are moving along to get where we want to go. And then you, in conjunction with the integrated support star, can see what supports are going to help our loved one to get to the vision of their good life. So those are the 3 tools that we have for you. Any questions about the Life Domain Vision tool? While they're thinking of their questions, I'm going to move on to our resources. So the Utah Parent Center, of course, is a fabulous resource for parents, and hopefully you're all on our eConnections newsletter email list. And we have created a person-centered support plan manual for families. I believe if you registered for the course that you got the PDF version emailed to you. But this manual has all of the tools that I talked about tonight in this presentation, along with a couple of extras, as well as instructions on how to use them, or some suggestions for ways to use them, and go about creating a person-centered plan. So you've got that resource to look to. Family to Family Network is a fabulous resource, and you could find them on the Utah Parent Center's website, on Facebook. I think those are the 2 best ways. Again, LifeCourse, the LifeCourse tools from Charting the LifeCourse Nexus are available for free. If you need more information about assistive technology, there's 3 different assistive technology resources listed. The website understood.org is great for a great resource for those with thinking and learning differences. And then, of course, the DSPD website for those who are thinking that their loved one will need extra supports in their life. If you're not already signed up, I encourage you to get on the wait list. There is a wait list, but if you don't ever get on the wait list, you'll never get off. So it's good to get on and get counted, and then the state and the legislature knows how many people are in need here in the state. Did we have any questions?
There is one information about housing community development, saltlakecounty.org, housing community development. It's a case management program that can be used by parents or individuals. It's new.
Oh, nice.
Looks like they're looking for some beta testers.
Awesome. So get that information off the chat, Julia, so that we can add it to our resources list.
I'm going to snag it right now.
I wanted to give some credit, give the credit for the content on communication. It came from Robert Woodbury, who's the AT coordinator in Cache County School District. And he and I co-presented at the Family to Family Network up in Cache County. And he generously allowed me to keep his slides and his great words to be able to share with other families. So we appreciate that. Any questions? I've done such a great job explaining it.
It's crystal clear. Crystal clear.
Yeah.
I did put a few of the links in to the chat for UCAT. I put in the link for the PDF for the person-centered manual,
Nice.
and a few more things in there as well. Okay, any last
Excellent.
questions?
I just wanted to put in a plug for the Utah Parent Center. It's a nonprofit organization that strives to help families with kids with disabilities. And there's lots of ways you can donate, from offering money to being a volunteer, which our Family to Family Network leaders are volunteers. There's in-kind donations. They make it easy. You can text to donate to the number on the screen. You can also find us on Amazon Smile, which is painless way. If you just smile.amazon.com, and anytime you purchase from Amazon, a little portion of that goes to the Utah Parent Center. So we'd appreciate your support. And here's our contact information. If you have any additional questions or want to follow up, you can reach me at the Utah Parent Center. I'd love to be able to help you. And that's it.
Okay. We have a comment here. Thanking you very much. This is great. She's going to use it in her personal and professional life, conducting PCSPs next week. That's awesome.
Oh, excellent.
Yay. Another one, thanking you so much. Thanks, everyone. Mandy or Kathy, do you guys want to say anything to end the meeting tonight?
Hype your next meeting. Apparently they don't.
Kathy, thank you.
Hey, so we don't have a meeting scheduled for December, but we will be back in January. And thank you everyone for coming on to the Zoom. That was really, really good and super wonderful tools. You guys did a great job presenting. Mandy, anything?
I'd just also like to thank Lisa for the time that she took to give that presentation, and look forward to seeing everyone again in January.
Yep.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Be safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.